Hey y'all, Coach Alex Gonzalez coming at y'all with a great Wellness Wednesday. Today I'm going to be talking about nutrition needs during high intensity programs. But before we get into that, new shirts for this month have dropped. They look like this. I'm not too much more special than you guys, so I don't have one quite yet. But they're a limited run, so grab one while you can. I'm going to leave a link in the comments down below. Today I'm talking about the proper nutrition that we need for these high intensity programs. So let's jump right into it. Now today I'm going to be talking a lot about macronutrients. If we don't necessarily know what those are, I would suggest going back and watching part 1, maybe even part 2 of my nutrition series from a month or so ago. But just as a general review here, we're going to start with carbohydrates. Well, carbs are going to be our main fuel source. Carbs eventually get broken down into glycogen. Glycogen then goes and gets stored into our muscles, which gets broken down, and we use that as our main fuel source. Carbs are going to be our main source of fuel during moderate or high intensity exercise. So it is going to be important that we get enough carbs in our diet. The next macro that we're going to be talking about is fat. Fats being one of the main macronutrients that we'll see. This is the most calorie or energy dense of all of the macros. So with that understanding, we should know that it burns rather slowly. Now fat is primarily used whenever we're at a low intensity. So really anything where our heart rate is sitting below like 110, maybe 120 beats per minute. Remember, energy use, macronutrient use is going to completely vary depending on what kind of intensity we're working on in the gym. Last but not least is going to be protein. Protein is our third macro and arguably one of the most important. I say it's going to be one of the most important, especially for this program, because we need it to rebuild our muscles. Now, very rarely are we ever going to use protein as an actual energy source, but it is imperative that we have enough protein in our diet, especially during these types of programs, so this way we can support and build that muscle. Now that we have a good understanding of those macronutrients, let's talk a little bit about the calorie intake. So if we eat enough protein, but we don't eat enough calories, we're probably going to struggle with supporting the energy requirements that we need for these workouts. Now on the flip side of things, if we eat enough calories, but we eat too much junk, not enough protein, the weight that we're going to put on is more than likely going to be fat and not muscle. Now one of the most important things to remember is that during these high intensity programs, we may put on 1 or 2 pounds. But remember, this calorie surplus is going to go directly to building muscle and will have nothing to do with gaining fat. Now I say this because my general recommendation is going to be to eat a surplus of about 800 to 1,000 calories plus our BMR. So hopefully most of us have stepped on our Fit Index scanner here at MP, which means that we should have a rough estimate as to what our BMR would be. If we don't know what our BMR is, BMR just stands for basal metabolic rate, essentially in a 24-hour period, how many calories that we're going to be burning. This number is actually going to be a lot higher than you think. So for myself, sure, I'm in my early 20s, I am a male, and I'm rather active. So my BMR is sitting just below 2,300 calories. So if I were to sit here for about 24 hours and not do anything, I could be watching TV, doing whatever, my body is going to go through and burn about 2,300 calories in 24 hours. Now this is going to be due to digestion, protein synthesis, basically everything and all of the different processes that our body has to go through. Now I say that we should be eating 800 to 1,000 calories plus our BMR because during exercise, during these programs, we're more than likely going to be burning 4, maybe 5, maybe 600 calories. With that 500 or 600 calorie deficit, we're actually more than likely only going to be having about a 300 calorie surplus. So as long as we're intaking the correct amount of protein, we should have the proper tools in order to recover correctly. And as long as we're intaking the correct amount of carbs, we should have the right amount of energy needed for these workouts. So how much of each should we really be eating? Well, it's just a general rule of mine that we should be eating about 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. So currently I weigh 195 pounds. I like to round up, it's a little bit easier. So to make it easy on myself, I tried to hit about 200 grams of protein a day. This is sufficient enough to where I can build muscle and make sure that I'm nice and recovered for the next day. Now with carbohydrates, making sure that we get enough is also going to be important when it comes to making sure that we hit that baseline amount of energy needed for these exercises. And as I'm sure we're feeling, these workouts are pretty intense. So a good rule for this is to hit about 1.5 grams of carbs per 1 pound of body weight. So again, if I'm around 200 pounds, 1.5 grams to 1 pound of body weight, I should be eating about 300 grams of carbs a day. Matching carbs and proteins together is going to be the most efficient way in doing this throughout our meals. Fats don't really have to be tracked too much here because we should get an adequate amount whenever we mix the two, so long as we're staying within our calorie range. So to get into the correct mindset here, I'm going to recommend us a couple of good foods. Now for solid, clean proteins, I recommend eggs, chicken, Greek yogurt. Now if you're vegetarian or vegan, black beans, tofu, lentils, these are going to be great for you. Now for carbs, we mainly want to focus on complex carbs because that's what's going to give us that extended release of energy. So things like rice, quinoa, and any nuts or seeds. Now I get it. Sometimes when we look at these numbers, they look a little bit high, and you may be thinking to yourself, gosh, how am I gonna get that much protein? That's where the extra supplementation comes in. I would highly suggest investing in a good protein powder. And of course, you know I'm gonna suggest our own. This is our very own Impact Nutrition Whey Protein. Now, this tub might be a little bit intimidating, but we do have 2-pound bags. Both the tub and the bags will come in vanilla or chocolate. Now, each shake is gonna come out to about 140 calories, maybe about 200 once you add almond milk with there. And each one is gonna supply you with about 25 to 30 grams of protein depending on how you scoop it. Personally, I drink one for breakfast and then I drink a second one after my workout. With 2 shakes a day, that's 50 to 60 grams of protein that I don't have to worry about. Now, when it comes to energy needs, these types of exercises are mainly power and strength. The main supplement that's gonna help us out here is gonna be creatine monohydrate. Now, we don't have any creatine in-house right now, but it looks like this. You can find it on the website. I love this stuff a lot. Creatine is gonna be one of the most important parts of one of the most important energy systems that we're gonna be using this month. That's gonna be the phosphocreatine system. Now, the phosphocreatine system, or the PC system, this system is primarily used for power, essentially that first 20 to 30 seconds of exercise. So that quick burst of energy. Whenever we supplement creatine, this is gonna allow us to go a little bit further, allow us to go 1 or 2 extra reps, and will slow down the initial time of fatigue. If we have any other questions on creatine or protein powders, I would also suggest checking out the supplementation video that I put out during my nutrition series. This all being said, talk to a medical professional before beginning any use of creatine, as people who may have liver or kidney dysfunction may be sensitive to it. Well, other than that, y'all, I don't got too much else for us. Like I said earlier, new Squatober shirts are in. Go ahead and grab one while you can. They're a limited run. Remember, this is always a conversation, so like and comment. It helps us out a lot. Let me know something we learned, any questions that we have, or recommendations for content that you want to see. But other than that, I'm Coach Alex. Y'all be good, drink some water. I'll see y'all in the next one.